Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host, Julia.
This is Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone.
And tonight we decided to go back to 1993 to watch another Stallone classic, Cliffhanger.
For those of you playing the home game, this is our third Stallone film that we're going to be covering. We're not covering his entire body of work, but Julia has been chomping at the bit to do a Stallone fest, and I don't know why I've been dragging my feet on getting it started. So yes, we're dealing with Cliffhanger. This, for those of you who are fans of his work, and we're certainly fans, this came at a really interesting period because this was kind of the redemption period of Stallone's career, because he had a bad couple of years because he tried to do comedy. And he did the John Landis film Oscar, which we both like. And Oscar was, it was moderately successful, but it wasn't a hit. And then he followed that up with Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which was, he considers it his worst film. It's not. But Stallone considers it to be like kind of the low point of his career. And, it was, and the film was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for him. It was embarrassing for audiences. So this was the comeback film. And if we're to believe Arnold Schwarzenegger's bio, he wrote his book Total Recall. Of course, he's titled that. Schwarzenegger claims that there was this period where he was basically not only were he and Stallone like at each other's throats career-wise, but they kind of tricked each other to make bad movies. This is something they talked about on talk shows. So apparently, Arnold was like on the phone, like, I'm going to make him think I want to do the movie about the cop and the mom, and then he's going to do that movie that I'm going to do Terminator 2. So it was a lot of that back and forth. And this was the moment where it really went south for Arnold, because the summer of 1993, the two big action movies aside from Jurassic Park, which took over everything, one was Cliffhanger, which opened the summer, and then about a month later came Last Action Hero, which was supposed to be the biggest movie of Arnold's career, and it wound up being maybe one of the biggest disasters of all time. So this was the summer where things completely reversed for those two. One day, they have to make a movie about that rivalry, by the way. I want to see that movie.
Oh, that would be fun. You don't think they're, too old to do that?
Well, I want to see, two actors playing him. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily want to see them play themselves, especially now. I mean, they did one movie together where it was just the two of them, Escape Plan, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that's good.
So they did that, but no, I mean, I don't think... I really want to see a movie about them, the 80s and 90s, at the height of their egos, at the height of their box office powers. Just do it, it's kind of like a buddy comedy, but it's almost like a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner movie. I think that'd be a lot of fun, actually.
Well, I just want our audience to know that I originally wanted to do this Stallone Fest last September and call it Sly-tember, but well,
and then we missed September, so then it became like Sly-tober and Sly-vember and Sly-sember, and it's kind of sounding kind of forced.
So now it's March and nothing rhymes, and here we go.
And it's like, what are we going to do? Watch St. Patrick's Day movies? No, let's do it. Let's kick in the Stallone film. So this is Cliffhanger from 1993. Man, I knew this movie was coming because the trailer for this thing, I just showed it to you a minute ago, and I know you've seen it. I've shown this to film classes so many times. It's probably the greatest movie trailer of all time. The trailer won an award all by itself. So listeners, if you've never seen the Cliffhanger trailer, do yourself a favor, because as you all know, Die Hard, was one of the most significant films to basically make that synergy of classical music and action movie imagery. Well, the Cliffhanger trailer, there's no dialogue, which is a really smart thing, because we've seen the movie and we can attest dialogue is not a strength of this film at all. But the trailer was just the action movie imagery with classical music, and it's still thrilling to watch. I love the trailer of the movie, and they played that thing in front of every movie for months and months and months. I couldn't wait to see this film.
Wait, so did Die Hard copy them?
Die Hard came in 88. This was 93.
Oh.
So Die Hard really was, using Ode to Joy in Die Hard was pretty amazing for the time. And, especially like the end credits, they actually play it in its entirety, and which is incredible. Let's face it, this movie is Die Hard on a mountain. Let's just call it for what it is. I'm not, I don't know if it's a direct ripoff, but let's face it. There would be no Cliffhanger without Die Hard. There would be so many movies that Die Hard really helps create that mold for the new modern action movie, and to create like a blue collar action movie hero. And this movie has that too.
All right, so let's get into it. We open with a rescue helicopter flying over the Rocky Mountains, and there's like voices on the radio, and they're trying to rescue somebody.
Can I just say that I hate the music in this opening scene? Trevor Jones is the composer. He's an awesome composer. He's done great scores. He had just composed The Last of the Mohicans, and the score to this, it sounds so much like it. I really hate them. I mean, the music, because once the action gets kicking, this movie, the music really kind of kicks in, and it's exciting. But like the theme to Cliffhanger, so to speak, that plays over the opening credits and the end credits, it sounds like it should accompany a John Deere tractor commercial. It's so corny and sentimental. It just doesn't fit for this movie at all.
Okay, well, I mean, John, you think John Deere tractors are sentimental?
No, 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 no. Well, you're gonna ride a tractor. You make sure that tractor is John Deere. Paid for by John Deere.
Wow, actually, you've convinced me. I think that's a good idea.
Seriously, John Deere, if you're listening to this, use the opening overture to Cliffhanger in your next ad. He'll sell tractors, I promise.
Okay, so we find out that there's the Rocky Mountain Rescue. Okay, we'll just set this up, and it's Hal, and who's played by
Michael Rooker.
Okay.
The intense Michael Rooker. Yes, love him.
Gabe, who's played by Stallone. His girlfriend Jess, who is
that's Janine Turner from Northern Exposure. Love her. Yeah.
And then Old Man Frank.
Old Man Frank, played by Ralph Waits.
And then Hal's girlfriend, who's not a part of the rescue team, but she's stuck up on the mountain with Hal.
And what's her name?
I don't know. Oh, Sarah.
Sarah. Let me find the actress's name, because what happened to her? Because she's excellent in this movie. Yeah, Michelle Joyner. Yeah, who are you, Michelle Joyner? What else have you done? I'm going to look her up.
Okay, you look that up.
I will look that up.
Michelle
Joyner.
While I keep talking.
IMDb.
Okay, so Hal and Sarah went on this like epic hiking, climbing trip, and he takes her up to this like, I don't know, sheer rock face cliff, and something happens to his knee, like he blows it out or something, and they're just like sitting up there like no big deal. I don't even know how he would have gotten up there all the way, much less how she got up there, not even being a professional climber.
The movie really sets the tone, not so much for the kind of movie it is. In terms of dialogue and plotting, we're not talking about one of the great screenplays, but in terms of spectacle, the camera basically finds our two actors at the top of this mountain face, and it's amazing. They're clearly up there. It's not a stunt. I mean, it is a stunt. I mean, I'm sure
they lowered them down.
I think that's probably what I suspect. A helicopter dropped them off there. They've got the little flare, and then the helicopter probably circled around and came back to them. That's probably what we're looking at.
Yeah, and then we have Sylvester Stallone like climbing this rock face, and so what's happening is it's too small for the rescue helicopter to just like land and pick them up. So the helicopter has to land on like the other side, and they basically have to, slide on a little tiny cable.
So this is the part of the show where we admit that we know nothing about mountain climbing. So he takes his little square slidey thingamajob and he puts it on the cable, and they slide across the cable with the thingamaflob, which begins to look a little shaky.
Okay. So we find out that, Gabe and Hal are really good friends, and this is where we kind of gauge all the relationships. But Hal is really into Sarah. I mean, they're like,
He was probably going to pop the question at some point, don't you think? Did you think there's probably a ring in his satchel?
Oh, yeah. Maybe if his knee hadn't blown out, he would have propose to her on this route.
Probably. Yeah, let's face it. That's probably what we're looking at.
Oh, man. Okay, so Gabe hooks Hal up and he goes across on the cable and Sarah's like, oh, good, he made it, And she's like, oh, I'm really nervous. And so she looks at Gabe and she's like, we're going to have dinner tonight, right? So you can tell they're like all really close. And then she, kisses him and... Did you find that weird?
No, it's a nice. Well, I mean, no, it's a nice moment. They're friends, no big deal. But what's funny is Stallone in total charmer mode, like let's go, like, hey, did you see that? Hey, your girlfriend gave you a little smooch.
Okay, so she starts going across, and I don't know why, but like one of the little hook things. It just like starts breaking
immediately.
Yeah. Like she gets to the middle and then it starts coming and then everything just unravels.
Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have got that mountain gear from Fisher Price because it's just breaking like crazy.
So she's hanging on and I mean she's gonna fall. I mean she's 4,000 feet up in the air. And so Gabe like gets out there and he's holding on to her and they're both wearing gloves and this is just kills me every time because I'm like, no, you can't wear gloves when you're trying to like no,
take the gloves off. Yeah.
And Hal is like, don't drop her, I mean, come on. As if it's not like obvious. In all seriousness, I mean, this opening is incredible. It's so terrifying. I remember, what a jarring way to start this movie because it's Stallone being heroic and failing. It's this poor girl scared out of her mind. Michelle Joyner's the name of the actress. She's done a lot of TV. This is like her big film role. She is excellent in this scene because she only has a few minutes of screen time. She's believable, she's likable, and she's devastating. And the editing is great. The close-ups of all the mountain gear like shattering in front of us. It's great. I love this scene. And when they do the long shots of the two of them on this wire, and we just see just how fragile, not to mention how tiny they seem in the midst of the mass of the mountains. I mean, it's great. It's great stuff. So then, she falls. She slips out of his grip. It's horrifying. Yeah, it is. And so sad. And the camera is just like watching her like fall to her death. It's pretty sadistic. There's a shot. It's a remarkable shot, but man, like this movie is just like director's Rennie Harlin, which we'll talk about later. I mean, Rennie Harlin like was never one to shy away from ultra violence. It looks like what they had to do at one point. This poor actress had to be in front of, I guess, a blue screen. And there's just this footage of like the mountains just rushing past her and she's sticking her hands up, just going, just screaming her head off. Like, oh my gosh, how many takes did she have to do that? But it's dispiriting because, we're seeing her last moments and the camera, I suppose they threw a dummy off a cliff and they follow this dummy all the way down. But yeah, it's very persuasive. And again, like it's great because immediately we establish, okay, what the arc of Stallone's character is. He needs redemption for this awful moment, even though clearly he did everything he could. It's not his fault what happened. I mean, but at the same time, it's like it's a bummer of a scene. I love that the movie opens this way because it's unpredictable. Because clearly, if you want to establish Stallone as your hero and you want to, make it a vanity project, you show how he saves her life. And instead, no, it's this horrible accident, and you and the audience are feeling the weight of it. I do remember how stunned everyone was in the theater because the suspense in this scene is unbearable. There's no way you cannot be shocked when you see this. I mean, this would be like what would happen at the end of a movie. Right. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, it's a great way to open it. And by the way, Vertical Limit never came close. Boy, did they try to do this movie. Freaking Vertical Limit and Everest a couple years ago. Yeah, never came close to this movie. So I guess then we kind of go to Denver and we see like some government people and there's a treasury department and we're like, okay, whatever. Yeah, well, I know where that building is. I've driven past it many times. This is the part of the movie that this film doesn't need to be as long as it is. It could be a lot tighter and they could have lost a lot of these talking head scenes of guys in suits basically giving us lots of exposition. It helps that Paul Winfield, who's a fantastic actor, that he's doing a lot of the talking for these scenes, but really the movie could use a lot less of this. Yeah. And then we see Gabe, and he's back, and
We know some time has passed because he has longer hair now.
And he's
Because
driving.
Stallone started the movie off with bad. Did you like his hair? I hate his hair in the opening scene. It looks like supercuts. It's really bad. But then tragedy hits him, and he gets good Stallone hair.
oh well.
So there's a silver lining.
Nothing like a little tragedy to just like forget about going to the barber.
So sad. I'm not even getting a haircut. I don't even care. I don't care.
But then he's driving back, and this is where he meets like the snow dudes.
And these characters, by the way, are in this movie because when this movie was being filmed, there was a little film out called Wayne's World. Clearly, they saw Wayne's World like, okay, here's a demographic we need to hit, the young people, because, it's Wayne's World. So we need two guys who have nothing to do with this movie, have no business being in this movie, but they're going to be the Wayne and Garth of Cliffhanger.
Yeah. They're like, Gabe, oh man, we're gonna go base jumping off the tower. You gotta come with us. And
How could they not know about what happened to him? It's so insensitive. Like, dude, don't you totally want to go up top a mountain? I mean, like, what could happen, dude? Come on, man. Come on. Go with us, bro. Come on.
you think they're remembering Sarah's death? You think they're that?
Don't you think don't you think like he has the stench of death wherever he goes?
I mean, these
Oh,
guys
man,
are
you see
probably
that guy?
high all the time. They're not gonna remember.
That's a good point.
Okay, so Gabe goes back to see Jess, and it is established a few minutes later that he's been gone for almost a year, and she has no idea where he's been.
Well, he says he's been in Denver. I've been in Denver. I got a job at Casa Bonita. I used to be a cliffhanger, and I'm a cliff diver. And then I worked at Tattered Cover, and they needed somebody to stack books, so I was a book stacker. But then, I worked at 16th Street Mall, and it was fun for a while. But, I could only do so many things. So, I decided to go back to being a cliffhanger. So here I am.
Oh my gosh. But, okay, obviously they share a house together, okay? And he just leaves for a year.
Yeah, she's taking care of a horse and a dog all by herself out in the mountains. Yeah, it is.
I mean,
But by the way, and I adored Janine Turner because I was such a fan of Northern Exposure, but she has no chemistry with Stallone in this movie. You think? I didn't feel nothing, especially for this scene.
I didn't feel
This scene does nothing for me. They're just saying silly, sappy, sad lines. It's just wasting time.
because
Like, come on,
she's-
get to the good stuff,
she's
movie.
pissed at him.
She's angry. Of course she is. But couldn't they have, I don't know, sped this along instead of this sad, solemn scene where she's moping and she's brushing a horse while she's talking to Stallone?
I don't know, but he apparently Sarah's funeral happened, and then he just takes off and doesn't tell anyone where he's going, doesn't communicate anything.
I was making sopapillas at Casa Bonita. I don't know why I have to explain that.
He goes, a lot of things fell apart on that ledge.
Oh man, that line. That is a Stallone groaner line right there. Oh man. When Sly writes great, people quote, there's a couple lines in Rocky Balboa, the 2006 film. People quote a lot of those lines a lot, and they're beautiful and they're heartbreaking. And same thing with Creed. There's some amazing dialogue in that film. But sometimes, when Stallone is left to his devices, sometimes, screenwriting isn't always his thing. And I think he's one of these guys who probably is like, oh, this is perfect. Don't touch it. So, he doesn't have a script doctor or, somebody. I'm sure he's surrounded by people like, oh, Stallone, it's great. This is great. Okay, yeah, we're going to do that. Okay, this is great. As opposed to someone to be like, people would never say this. A human being on planet Earth would never say this, Mr. Stallone. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie.
Okay, well, what's crazy is that he comes back and he's like, I want you to come back with me. He wants her to leave her house and her horse and her dog and go back with him, and he has not talked to her in almost a year. The balls on this guy. Seriously.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
And she's just like, no. I admire her. She's not putting up with this garbage.
No, and she does not, his sad, soulful words do not sway her away from finishing her job brushing that horse.
Well, okay, this is very common in every Stallone
Do you think that
film.
horse is just so typical?
Okay, why is he bad in every relationship in every film?
Oh, well, conflict. You need that.
But things he does are
if
ridiculous.
he was a great husband, where would the conflict be? So like, not only so he
has the conflict with Hal.
He has a conflict with Hal, but this is also okay. So like his own marriage is falling apart. Hal's maybe marriage fell apart, literally fell apart. So it's like it's very figurative. I mean, come on, I'm sure Stallone was thinking about it. Like, he's got to climb back that mountain in order to find his soul on top of the summit. I'm sure he was thinking about it in those terms when he wrote the script.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, although this movie, by the way, the opening credits tell us, based on a premise by John Long. A premise.
I want to get paid for a premise.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this guy climbs on top of a mountain. I got it. Okay, good premise, John. I'm gonna write the screenplay. Good job. Okay, mountain movie.
Here's $10,000. Okay, so, she's basically like, no, I'm not leaving with you. It's starting to snow in the Rockies. Okay, now we see that the Treasury plane is flying with all the money. They notice that another plane is nearby. A hijacking is in process.
It's great. It's very much. I like this movie a lot. I suspect the guy who wrote Con Air saw this movie like, oh man, this is part of the movie. They should just make this into a movie. I do love this sequence, even though it's pointless, because wouldn't it be easier just to rob the plane when it lands?
I mean,
it has to be an in-air heist.
I guess.
It's awesome. It's one of the most amazing stunts, especially because we learned it's a real stunt. A guy actually rappelled from one plane to another in midair. That's insane and incredible. And the guy who did it, his name is Simon Crane. He was paid $1 million for this stunt. He's still in the Guinness Book of World Records. And let's face it, if this had gone wrong, I'm sure that $1 million would have went to his insurance. So yeah, it's amazing. But again, I'm like, wait till the plane lands, put the guns out, make them give you the money, and save yourself a lot of trouble. Right?
Yeah, instead of getaway cars, they have a getaway plane.
Instead, like, you murder 5 people on both planes, right? At least.
Yeah, there's so many murders.
The body count in this thing is high after 10 minutes. It's crazy how violent this thing is, and it gets worse. We'll talk about that.
So once they kill all the people that aren't in on it, they have a cable connecting the planes.
Every actor who's not on the movie's poster is immediately killed after 10 minutes. Seriously, the stack of bodies in this thing, it's crazy so quickly.
So, all right, we know that it goes badly, okay?
Well, it's amazing. Well, I love that there's a plane, because the bald dude with the mustache, I'm just going to call
Travers.
him that. Thank you. And by the way, great character actor, even though I always think of him as a bald dude with a mustache. So he not only commandeers the plane to help the heist come along, he touches a button, and suddenly the butt of the plane just pops off. Like, wow, do planes actually have that?
Oh, look, it's a hatchback. It's just like my old Outback. So the money is dangling from these wires because one of the guys they killed isn't really dead, and so he magically
and it becomes a gunfight between 2 planes in midair.
Yeah.
It's super cool. This movie's awesome.
And so then the cable gets kind of cut. The first plane explodes, and the money's hanging, and then it snaps, and these 3 cases just fall into the mountains. And of course, the bad guy, Quaylen, played by
the wonderful John Lithgow, who's having a lot of fun here, visibly.
He's just like, okay, worst case scenario, now what? So there's a plane crash, and then, because the guy who was shooting at the bad guys, shot out the hydraulics on the bad guy's plane, that Crystal is flying, which I guess is the girlfriend of
Caroline Goodall, who her prior film was playing Mrs. Banning in Hook.
Yes.
And I love this actress, but what are you doing in this movie, Caroline Goodall? She's like, okay, I spent a year playing Mrs. Peter Pan. I'll do Cliffhanger next. What an insane! I love watching her in this. I'm like, what are you doing in this? That'd be like if Judi Dench had played this role. It would be the same thing. Like, what are you doing here?
All of her dialogue is tango, tango, go to 120, altitude 345. Tango, tango out.
That's basic. And it's meant to suggest that there's previously some kind of relationship between her and Lithgow, and he kind of pulled her into his seedy group of guys. But she just seems too smart to be in with these guys who are like bloodthirsty, insane.
Okay, she was probably with Quaylen, right? And they probably hatched this plan together, and then they pull in.
Do you really think so?
Maybe.
Can you imagine the pillow talk? Okay, so we're going to rob a plane in midair. Ooh, can I fly it? Yes. Oh, charming. Let's do it. High fives.
High fives.
I can't see it. No, I can't.
Okay, well, the plane crashes with all of them in it.
And it's a spectacular plane crash. This was the same year as the movie Fearless, and what was the other one? Alive. Same year. And I think this is the best plane crash of the three. I really do. It's a spectacular scene. The sound effects, the special effects, it's great. It's a spectacular scene. You really feel the impact. Yeah, it's good stuff.
So, I mean, then there's a lot of like, who's in charge? Who are they going to trust? You know, the pecking order is getting established.
And immediately we also established that John Lithgow's performance is so much stronger than the material because this is such a silly role. And, you know, and I don't know if the accent was completely necessary, but I mean, he's doing like a Peter Lorre accent. It's fun. He did this right after Raising Cain, and a lot of critics went after him for that one too. But I dig it. I do. And we'll talk about it when we get to the end of the film. But he's supposed to be imposing enough that he poses a threat to Sylvester Stallone, and I gotta say, he's good enough in this that that illusion is maintained.
So Crystal gets a hold of the Rocky Mountain Rescue Team, and she's like, "We need insulin," and Quaylen's like, "Would you have thought of that?" Like looking at Travers, and it's like, "What do you mean? Would you have thought of that? Like they wouldn't come rescue them if you just like they were in a plane crash." I just don't even.
It's so silly. It's like, and we need dog food because my seeing eye dog is hungry. Would you have thought of that?
Exactly.
And we're out of coffee. Would you have thought of that?
So Jess asked Gabe to go on this rescue mission, and he's like, "I haven't climbed in months. You just lose the feel."
Oh my gosh. Oh, Mr. Stallone, that should not be in a movie. Look, Jesse, I haven't climbed in months. You lose the feel, okay? You just lose the feel. What does that even mean? So
we kind of cut back to the FBI. Like, they know that Quaylen has stolen the money, and they're like, "Well, he can't do anything with the money." And they're like, "Turns out he is the only one with the connections to actually launder this money. So this is a really big deal." I mean, okay. Anyways, okay. Gabe meets Hal on the mountain.
Good. Stallone wanted you to be compelled by that. So good.
I am compelled. Okay, so I guess Gabe decides to go. He finds the feels and goes for it.
But you pointed this out. A moment after he says that awful line, she asks him, "Why don't you feel anything?"
Yeah.
It's like someone really should have done an edit on that script. You know, you don't do that. You don't feel anything. Like, it's just. But again, these scenes should have been tighter because you know what this film reminds me of even more so than Die Hard on a Mountain? It's like Twister. When the film is characters sitting around talking, it kind of sucks. But when the action kicks in, it's pretty wonderful.
There's a cow. There's another cow.
Yeah, like Twister. I mean, when they're sitting around talking about how amazing Bill Paxton is, how he could feel the weather, the movie really is dopey. Same thing for this movie. Like when the characters are just sitting around, when they're talking about the plot, or that sheriff who's a painter, or the snow dudes. This movie is really. I mean, it's
goofy.
It's not just a B movie; it's a C movie. But when the action is in motion, it's it's a tremendous action movie. But like Twister, it's like this film, when it stops for plot, it just kind of embarrasses itself.
Okay, so Gabe meets Hal up on the mountain, and Hal's just kind of like, "What are you doing here?" And they get into this big old argument, and he says to Gabe, like, "You did it your way, and she died." So he's obviously still a little bitter. Still a little upset.
So they didn't have this conversation months ago. Like it's weird. I mean, did he literally just get in his car and drive off as soon as the funeral ended?
Yes, that's what she said.
It's just couldn't this have happened over a phone? I don't know.
Apparently he doesn't have a phone. He didn't let anyone know where he was. Casa Bonita doesn't have a phone.
They don't allow me to do calls to Casa Bonita. I gotta do the cliff dive, and I gotta make the sopapillas, then I go home. I can't
make the sopapillas. Hey, they have really good sopapillas. That's the only good thing about it.
And then I gotta like raise the flag. I gotta clean the flags when I'm done. It's what you do. It's Casa Bonita, but no phone.
Okay, so then we find the bad guys are like tracking Hal and Gabe, and they want them to lead them to the suitcases, okay? Because they are not expert hikers here. Okay, so they meet up with the bad guys, and basically they're like, okay, you need to get these cases for us. And he's like, well, what's in them? And they're like, it's none of your business. And the bad guy is like, suits, shirts, just $100 million. Like, he just does not care.
Another very glib one-liner by Mr. Stallone. There's no, gosh, some of these scripts that he writes, you could just hear the corniness and, oh man, this one, it's full of them. Okay, so they say like, okay, well, where's the case? Because they're hiking around, and he's like, well, it's straight up, So what's crazy is they think that like he's gonna try to escape, which he does. But the fact that, to their credit, they are correct. But the fact that they like take his jacket, tie a rope around his ankle, and like make him climb up to get this case. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. Like that he would not come. I don't know. There's a strong chance he's going to die on the way up from hypothermia. Yeah. So it's incredibly stupid on their part that they're treating him like a dog and making him do it this way. Yeah. It's compelling, of course. And he has the backwards hat. Oh man, he turns the hat backwards. It's like, it's on. Of course. I mean, you give Stallone a hat and you turn him backwards. I mean, you might as well be like, okay, I'm going to turn my hat backwards. I'm Superman now. Just for fun, I'm going to tie one hand behind my back as I climb this mountain because I can do it. So he finds the suitcase, and of course he's like trying to break it open, and he sees, oh yeah, there really is money in here. And then they're like, get him back down here for some reason. It's been 2 minutes. Get him down there. Start pulling on the So they pull the rope. He cuts it. Then they fire shots up at the mountain and start an avalanche because they're idiots. It's like for 2 minutes. It's like characters don't behave in a way that make any sense at all. It's because like Stallone takes the suitcase and tosses it. Yeah. Which I don't get. And they start firing at the snow, which I don't get. And they're tugging him, trying to pull him off a mountain, even though he's doing them a favor, which also doesn't make any sense. Like for about 3 or 4 minutes, this film just ceases to have any logic. But they think that he's dead. Okay. And so Hal is leading this group. Well, another thing I thought that was funny is he's like, well, what are your names? And Hal is like, Tucker and Walker. And I thought for the longest time he made those up as like fake names. Because the way he says it, like Tucker and Walker. Yeah, like shifty eyes, And then it turns out that's actually their names. Those are their last names. Do you think they had a test screen and like, I think the audience really likes this Walker and Tucker thing. So let's just. So Gabe's name is Gabe Walker, and again, it's Stallone naming his character after like what he does. That's just funny. Yeah. Okay. A Stalloneism, if you will. Okay, so Jess is like, what is going on? Nobody's, she's trying to get Hal on the radio. Can't get him. And she goes to where she thinks he's going to be. And then Gabe meets her at this cabin. And of course, he's like an icicle. And she's like, what's going on? So now they're in cahoots together and they need to save Hal and they need to find the second case before the group. I have a question, though, because Stallone is freezing because he's wearing nothing but a muscle tee and jeans and ice shoes. But otherwise barehanded climbing, this big mountain. He gets into this cabin. She's there. And she breaks the glass and has a sweater for him. Why was there a sweater? In case of emergency, break glass for a sweater. I don't think the sweater was in there. It was. It was? Yes, she breaks the glass. I mean, is it like this was... It was a famous sweater from a famous explorer. I guess who died, yeah. Because so it's all like... It's like a Huxtable sweater. Yeah, it looks like so old. It's got like holes in it. But why the sweater? Why is there a sweater under glass? Okay, I don't know, but it's the only thing. That's all they found of him. His pickaxe and his sweater. Maybe he died in that sweater, and then they were like, we're going to put this on display. That's a bit of dialogue that should have been in this. Oh man, this thing kind of smells, but I don't know where.
Isn't this a sweater?
Is this blood? They're like, it's kind of a sticky sweater, if you know what I mean.
I know. I don't know.
Why are vultures circling me with this sweater on?
Okay, the other thing that's so unbelievable is that, okay, so there's this like machine that has the cases.
Yeah,
like,
with the readout of where they are.
Yeah, where they are. And so they show Tucker and Walker like where the 3 like cases are on this like
And it looks
map.
I mean it looks like an Atari video game.
Yeah.
It's like, and they look at it like, oh yeah, we know exactly where it is. No, you don't.
They're like
So
do you
ridiculous.
know where these are? And he's like, if you don't know, then, you know, basically you're dead because we don't need you. But if you know and you can lead us to them, then you can stay alive. Okay, like, so Stallone, like, remember, okay, his character sees this thing, like, one time.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah.
A smarter movie, which this is not, a smarter movie would have been like, okay, let's just pretend we know where it is because that thing doesn't even work. You know, they're just like, look, I think it's over there. That's like, you know, where the little bumpy thing is.
Yeah.
It's such a bad. I mean, you know, it's. I mean, they. You know, I think today, when eventually they remake this movie, and of course they will at some point. I'm sure they'll, you know, be GPS.
The graphics will be better.
Yeah, GPS. But yeah, it's so.
Well, but the thing is, like, he remembers and finds all the cases before they do, and they have the tracker thing with them. But he just has, like, what, a photographic memory?
Well, a bigger issue is how these characters. I mean, the movie takes place basically like a day or so, or 2 days.
It's like, yeah, like 2 days.
All right, 2 days, and these characters are mountain climbing all day.
They're just traversing.
They're just going up and down these mountains all day. They never take breaks. They never, you know, no one's like getting winded. They're just like running.
And you never see them eat.
Let's go to the top of that mountain. And they climb to the top of the mountain. It's like, gosh, you guys should call Guinness Book of World Records. You just made it to the top of 2 mountains within 3 hours. It's insane.
It would take somebody all day to climb 114er, and they do multiple times.
It's crazy. Like the scene at the end of the movie where John Lithgow, you know, says like, meet me, and you know, he's like, I'll meet you at the highest point. And Stallone's like, okay, I'll see you. I'll meet you at the top of Everest. I'll be right there. Only take about 15 minutes to jog up there.
Okay, so Gabe and Jess find the second case.
Yeah.
And they take all the money out of the case, and then they make a snowman. They have time to make a snowman. And they put the tracker in it. Like, they're just messing with them. And then they are like running away, and you were outside during this part, but
I was walking the dog, but I'm like, I know this movie really well. I'll be fine.
but you didn't see how the bad guy slides down the hill using Gabe as a sled.
Yeah, it's a cool moment.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, that's cool.
And then they switch, and then Gabe's on top, and he just like pushes his face into the ice, and he just gets like all these like cuts all over him.
Do you think they saw the scene in Christmas Vacation where Chevy Chase is going down the side of that mountain, and they're just like, you know, we could do that, but with violence? What if somebody was sliding down there with Chevy and they were just beating the hell out of each other? That would be a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then they cut to snow dudes in a tent, and they're like,
Snow dudes.
they're like,
Oh man.
he's like, so like next time you want to go out and you like check things, could you maybe like check the Weather Channel? Because like, wouldn't it be better if we were like at home playing video games instead of being stranded in Tent City? And the other one's like, yeah, dude, that'd be so much better. I'm like, is this the like comedy?
You know, Stallone was writing this like, this is going to be bigger than Wayne's World. I just know it. I can feel it.
And then Gabe and Jess build a fire with the money, and he's like, wow, it's so expensive to heat this place.
Oh man.
Okay, so the next day, the group they run into the snow dudes.
Of course.
And how?
Well, like I told you, it's the Rocky Mountains. It's small. You know, it's not like it's a big area. I mean, what? It's like a park. You know, it's not like this. It's not like it's, you know, this untold vast thousands and thousands of miles each way. No, it's like a backyard. You just run into people all the time.
Yeah. And Hal is like, leave them alone. They're just kids. And but then he yells like, Hal. I think I kind of blame Hal for this.
Well, Rooker is the actor. He yells a lot. There's a lot of yelling, like, run! And he does. He means well. He's just, I mean, come on. The guy watched his likely to be a fiance die in front of him.
So now he just yells at everybody.
He probably whenever the signal turns, like the little white guy walking across the street, he's probably like, run, go, everybody, no, oh God, no. And they're like, dude, we're just crossing the street.
So like one of them gets shot, and then the other one, it just like does a base jump to like get out of there.
Yeah.
And lands in some trees, but I don't even know if he makes it. We don't even know.
No, I think even the editing room, like, I think we've seen enough of these characters. Let's move on.
Yeah. So now Gabe and Jess are like, he knows kind of where Hal, for some reason, he knows like, oh, I bet Hal's taking him the long way. So we're going to take the shortcut. We're going to go through this cave. And he ends up in a bat cave.
Yeah.
And of course, Jess, being a girl, she's like, don't say anything. And then she stands up, sees the bats, freaks out. And then, of course, all the bats just...
With all of her experience, don't you think she'd seen a bat in a cave, let alone a bat cave?
Mean, she's been in that cave before, if that's a shortcut.
If she's hanging out with Stallone, I'm sure they went into a bat cave together. It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, look, either make the character the screaming damsel in distress or make her the equal of Stallone, which is probably more probable. But instead,
I feel like she's like kind of in the middle. Like
it's like the
kind
movie,
of both.
Yeah, it's like the movie doesn't have one, so they're like, all right, we'll have her fill that role. I don't know. I don't feel like this is a good use of Janine Turner. I don't know what movie would have been, but
like she's a rescue professional and a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
There's no way she's screaming about bats.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those characters that just becomes too much of a plot device, I think.
Yeah. So Gabe is trying to get up through this cave so he can rescue Hal, but then there's a bad guy up there who sees him.
Leon, one of the same year, played one of the Jamaicans in Cool Runnings.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like adorable in that. And then this movie,
he's terrifying.
Kicking the crap out of Stallone. Yeah, he's great. I love his big scene where he basically just brutalizes Stallone within an inch of his life. It's great.
Yeah, there's a big cave fight where he just kicks Stallone's butt. And he says some really awful things to him about oh,
it's vicious. It's great. And he's got blood in his mouth. Yeah, he's really scary and intimidating. Like, why didn't Leon? He went by Leon. Like, why didn't he become an action hero or even a movie villain after this? He's really good. And his career also kind of faded away after this movie.
So then at one point, Gabe picks him up and kills him with is it a stalagmite or
a stalagmite? Yeah, or stalagmite or stalactite? Ooh, that is a science question. Well, here's a question, folks. So Stallone can bench press Leon over his head into a spike, but he couldn't pull a twig of a scared climber to safety at the beginning of the film.
Okay, but he
lifts the bad guy over his head and smushes him into a stalagmite or tite, one of those. Mm-hmm. But he can't just
she's wearing these
because it's not the gloves. We're really blaming on the gloves.
Yeah, I'm blaming the gloves.
You sound like Johnny Cochran right now.
The glove. It just fell off of her. It did not fit.
If the glove don't glide, then she will slide.
The glove did glide, so she just slid to her death. Oh my gosh! But no, okay, in the cave, Gabe has him in a better.
Is it because he doesn't have gloves on? That's why he's able to kill him so well.
A better grip situation. But I will say, it's a little okay, it's not like these cave stalactites or whatever.
So if he was wearing isotoner gloves, he would have slipped out of his hands and it wouldn't have worked.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, makes sense.
So I mean, the fact that he impaled this guy is definitely unbelievable.
I mean, there's a scene in the same director, Rennie Harlan, did Die Hard 2, which I love. Most people don't love Die Hard 2. I love Die Hard 2. And there's a scene where John McClane uses an icicle and he pokes the guy's eye out with an icicle.
Well,
so clearly there's, I think,
seems a little more sense.
I think even the director is like, oh man, we gotta milk this.
Okay.
Nobody's killing people with these things.
So the bad guy, Leon, dies and his walkie-talkie falls into a crevice. And so Gabe's trying to get it. But then he can hear Hal's trying to tell him there's a bomb up here. There's a bomb. And so Gabe and Jess like try to get, they're like, okay, we got to get out of here. So he's like, we got to go to the west side or something. I don't even know what he's saying, but they use this like 250-year-old rope. And she's like, is this going to hold us? And he's like, probably not.
Isn't it from the same casing where she got the sweater?
Yes. The guy who died in that sweater probably used that rope.
There's blood on this rope too.
It's a bad omen. So anyways, they like tie themselves to this rope and they have to get into this crevice. So it's like,
great. Yeah, I mean, it's completely implausible. And then, and the editing is cutting back to the rope, just like getting, slicing itself every time they make a move. Because it's the two of them alongside the mountain. I mean, I don't know. I don't know quite how they did this stunt.
It's a great stunt.
It's super. I mean, like every stunt in this movie, it's really something else.
And then we have an ode to the beginning of the film where he's holding Jess just like he was holding Sarah, and there's the glove thing again.
The glove thing, yeah.
But he manages to like hoist her up.
Because clearly, as if this movie is telling us anything, you need to be like Stallone and be almost naked to survive a mountain. Okay, the more clothing you wear, because even when he's under, like at one point, we're not there yet, but even when he's underwater, he takes his sweater off immediately.
Yeah.
So like clearly the idea is less clothes, you will survive Everest. In fact, maybe all those guys who died trying to get to the top of Everest, maybe they just taken all their clothes off.
Hey, that sounds like a good movie.
That definitely sounds like a movie and nothing, not reality.
Okay, so then now Frank is in his helicopter and he's now.
Have we even talked about Frank? Frank, the old guy.
No, Frank, the old man.
It's a completely needless character. Ralph Waite does a nice job giving him some warmth, but the character is basically you're just waiting for this guy to eat it, and boy does he ever! It's a mean scene.
There's this part though at the beginning.
Are you talking about Michael Rooker?
No, when Sarah
What?
is like hanging on for dear life, and Hal is like really giving it his all, like just like.
I think Michael Rooker thought, like, if I win an Oscar for any scene in the movie, it's going to be this one. Yeah, so like they're holding him down, and Lithgow has a gun on him.
No, this is the first scene of the movie. I'm talking about the first scene.
We're going back to the beginning.
Yeah, there's Sarah's like holding on for dear life, right? And Hal is just like, don't drop her. And then you look in the back, like Frank just has his head like kind of behind Hal, just like has this huge smile on his face. He's just like grin, like cheesing it from ear to ear. And I'm like, is he in the same movie as these other people?
Is that we're not filming now? Oh, we are. Oh,
yes. So
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then Frank makes weird art.
Yes, he does. Another subplot this movie does not need.
So I'm like, what is Frank doing up with the Rocky Mountain Rescue Team? Like, why?
Yeah, he's kind of past his prime, isn't he?
Yeah.
But Hal loves him.
I guess. All right. So he finds, the bad guy team with Hal. And then here's another example of like Hal trying to warn Frank and yelling, and then Frank getting shot like a million times.
Yeah, it's Cliffhanger, so it gets shot a lot. There's so many squibs going off in this movie.
Yeah, and then Hal steals the knife that's on him and uses that later. So now the helicopter is free, and Quaylen's like, all right, we're going to use this helicopter. But Crystal's like, no, we can't search for the cases in the helicopter. There's not enough gas. And Travers is like, yeah, that's what we're doing. And so I don't know. Quaylen tries to get the tracking device thing. Mm-hmm. And him and Travers are like in this argument. And Quaylen decides to kill his girlfriend, which is so insane.
Yeah, that's another moment that doesn't really check out. Because he whispers into like, the greatest thing you can offer is sacrifice. And he shoots her. Yeah,
just shoots her in the back.
Yeah,
he's like, now I'm the only one who can pilot this helicopter. And so it's like what? Like he wouldn't be in charge of Travers if she was around? It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's to a point where maybe we just didn't need this character. The movie's already killed enough people that you like at this point.
Yeah. So bye-bye, Crystal. Mm-hmm. So then Gabe and Jess are still trying to make their way to Hal, and they try and go across the same bridge, but now it's been booby-trapped, and a bomb goes off.
Great shot where Stallone is running towards the camera on the bridge. The back of the bridge just explodes, and he just runs forward. It's great. It's great.
Somehow, Gabe miraculously finds the last case. Like, miraculously. He just knows where it is. It's that photographic memory.
Yeah.
So, good for him. He takes the money, stuffs it in his pack. And then, so now that they've located the case on their real fancy doohickey thing.
Yeah.
They're gonna dispose of Hal, and so they ask one of their other guys, like, don't, do it quietly, because people are gonna find us if you start shooting. And so this is a pretty, like, crazy scene.
Well, it's like most of this movie, it's way more violent than it needs to be. And I don't know if this actor really has an Australian accent, but it seems like all the villains in this movie have extreme accents. It's almost like a battle. Because Lithgow, who I love his performance in the movie, but it's not subtle. And this guy, not only does he have like this menacing Aussie accent, but suddenly he becomes like a footy ball player in his abuse of Michael Rooker. And at one point, he punches Rooker, and Rooker, falling backwards, he lets out an impressive spittle of blood. It's so gross.
It looks very real.
Even this late in the movie, it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is so crazy. The snow is just caked with blood. And the scene goes on for quite some time. Yeah.
So Hal ends up using that little knife and, like, getting the bad guy and... Yeah,
it's very satisfying. Although, of course, he takes a moment to do like a little quip before he kicks him off the mountain. Again, reminding you, written by Sylvester Stallone.
Okay, so now Travers is looking for the last case, and on his little thing, it's like bouncing around. The dot is like bouncing around. He's like, "What is going on?"
It's a moment right out of Total Recall. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he sees that the tracker is tied to a bunny rabbit. And is just hopping around, and he gets so angry, he lets
machine gun fire off the bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see that thankfully the rabbit survived.
Very typical Hollywood touch, especially at this point in time. This movie with its massive, staggering body count, but the film is clearly showing us the rabbit is alive. So don't worry, folks. The rabbit survived. It's okay. Worry. It's all right.
So now Travers is done. He doesn't have the money, so he's on the walkie-talkie yelling at Quaylen, and Quaylen's like, "This is an open line, like, stop talking," and he doesn't care. He's leading the FBI straight to them. So that's what he does. And then Travers goes after Gabe, and that's where we have, like, he finds Gabe. Gabe, runs away and ends up in this very weird part of the mountain.
A set, as you noted.
It's definitely a set.
It looks like if there was an Ice World exhibit at Disneyland, this would be it. It's like a little, it's like the Frozen ride. It's like this little icy bridge.
Yeah, like a little bridge with like a frozen pond underneath. Yeah. I'm like, you're up in like... You're in at 14,000 feet. Like, where is this pond?
This is like a $70 million film, which in 1993 was a staggering amount. I think if they just got like, all right, it doesn't always have to look good. But use the set.
Yeah. So Gabe is hiding under this bridge, and he grabs Travers by the ankles and then like pulls him down. But Gabe goes under the water, and this is where you noted he just immediately like takes off his shirt.
It's like Stallone just has such an aversion to clothing in this movie, which is insane because it's the Rocky Mountains and it's snowing.
Yeah. So then he's like, he can't get through the ice, and Travers is like, "Ooh, I got him." And he takes his gun out, and then Stallone beats him to it and shoots him through the ice.
I guess the gun still works underwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, do we know if that's true, if that works?
Well, what's more plausible? That his gun would work in like zero temperature water, or that he would not be frozen at that point. He would still, be able
the
to
wherewithal.
and hold his breath. Yeah.
He's a miracle man.
Yes,
apparently.
he is.
All right, so Travers is bye-bye. And now Gabe, he, I don't know, talks to Quaylen over the radio?
Yeah, because Quaylen, at this point, he has abducted Janine Turner because she climbed up the mountain. She thought it was going to be the old man manning the helicopter, and it turns out it's John Lithgow. Lithgow forces her into the helicopter, and, one of these things like, I'm sorry. I thought it was somebody else. Now I'm a hostage. Sorry about that. My bad.
Sorry I made your job harder.
Sorry, I'm the damsel in distress, so come save me. Yeah, it's that kind of a movie. So then
this is
Lithgow's like, I'll meet you at the highest mountaintop, and Stone's like, dud. And a minute later, he's at the top.
Yeah, he's at the top.
He's not winded. He hasn't broken a leg. Gangrene hasn't kicked in. No, he's fine.
And then, like, what clothes is he wearing? Because his clothes were all wet. Is he still wearing his wet clothes? They look dry.
Well, it's sweat. It's all that sweat, which should be frozen solid, though, at this point.
Well, no, he was just under the water.
Yeah, but isn't he like covered in sweat after? It seems like his back is always
under the water.
The shirt isn't dry yet.
He was under the ice. And then he goes and he gets the radio, and now he's hiking.
Do I have hypothermia? Oh, well, I don't have time to worry about that.
Okay, so...
Should my hands be shaking like that? Who cares?
It's like, I can't feel my toes anymore. It's fine.
I mean, look, there's a scene in Rambo 3 I remember vividly. I don't remember Rambo 3 that well, but there's a scene in the movie where he's in a cave. He has this massive bullet wound, and he puts gunpowder in the wound, and he sets it on fire, and it explodes, and he just goes, ugh, and he's fine. So...
So this is the world he's living in. Okay. All right, so now Gabe has the money in the bag, and Quaylen's in the helicopter, and lets Jess go finally, because he's like, I have what you want. But it's so funny, like, he's on the radio, he's like, come to me, Quaylen. Come on, come over here. Like, he's like, come here, little puppy. Come on.
He's like a European supervillain, and now he's really worried about this mountain man who is has thwarted his evil plans. Quaylen, you truly are my greatest obstacle. It's really silly that he's talking about him in myth-making ways, but of course this is Sylvester Stallone like, okay, you're gonna talk about me like I'm a mountain you can't transverse yourself. I'm like a boulder you can't push, and if you do push, it'll crush. Like Stallone is really just. I mean, Rambo is full of those kind of lines. So of course, Gabe Walker also has that kind of myth making.
All right, so Gabe takes the money, and because Quaylen's like, throw it in the helicopter, and he throws it up into the blades, and the money just gets chopped up.
Well, isn't it snow?
No, it's the money.
I thought it was snow. I thought he stuffed the backpack with snow and threw it into the blades. Like, snow job. That's what I thought happened.
No, he put all the money into that bag.
Oh, I thought it was snow.
No, literally raining money.
I thought it was like he blind like, I got you. Snowball.
No, it's even worse because he had the money and he ruined it all.
Oh, wow. I thought he used the snow. Okay.
No. I don't think use snow. You didn't see him put the money in that bag?
No.
Yeah, he did. That's why when he found the third case, he put the money in his own bag, and then he tied the tracker to the bunny.
Thank you for explaining that. What am I gonna do? Oh, rabbit! Come here, rabbit.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So then you see Quaylen, who's like,
It's like, Lithgow, don't hold back. You've been really rating it in. Just go for it, Lithgow, and action.
So then it's just this crazy action sequence where Stallone takes the cable that Jess had been on, and he attaches it to this ladder, and then the helicopter kind of loses control, goes over the cliff, but then Stallone grabs onto the ladder and like goes down with the helicopter.
Just goes for a ride. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he really could have fled the scene at this point.
Yeah, he really could have. He could have gone in the opposite direction, but then
Yeah.
you wouldn't have had your final fight scene with Lithgow.
I love this so much because, again, folks, there's nothing more ridiculous than the thought of Sylvester Stallone fighting John Lithgow, the father from Harry and the Hendersons. It's so ridiculous. But Lithgow is such a fantastic actor. He's so committed. And Stallone, he's very generous in this respect, at least at this point in his career. Whenever he in his fight with Leon, like he's always good at like taking hits, you know. I think years of playing Rocky probably, prepped him for that. So yeah, like the fight is almost plausible. You almost believe it because they're both really giving it, even though it's like one shot from Stallone, this fight would have been over in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're blacked out. But no.
Take that. Ow! That would have been it.
Ow, that hurt.
Do I have a concussion? I will sue you, Sly.
So
Do we get it? Do we get it?
So he puts him in the helicopter and he's like, keep your hands and arms inside at all times.
For those losing track, that's like the 20th cornball line in this
Yeah.
movie. But,
So
yeah.
they show Lithgow's face as this helicopter goes down. I mean, till the very last second.
Yeah. No, I mean, gosh, I would love to see the outtakes.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, action, and you're almost there. Okay, action. No. Let's do it bigger.
All right, so our final scene is our three heroes, Hal, Gabe, and Jess, like on top of pretty much looks like the same exact mountain as the beginning. To be honest, I don't know why they were even on that ledge that they're on. It doesn't really make any sense. But
Yeah, but it's Cliffhanger, so you got to end with spectacle.
yeah, so then they say, we're gonna come get you, and now they're all cozy up on the mountain. Do you think Gabe stays at the Rocky Mountain Rescue, or do you think he goes back to Casa Bonita? What happens?
Oh wow, I like to think that all three of them get jobs at Casa Bonita, and Gabe will humbly, because he's trying to correct the wrong of accidentally killing Hal's would-be fiance. I think he's going to be the one in the gorilla suit, and the two of them are going to be the one to gracefully cliff dive.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I would. And I think, but of course they're cliff diving into that water that smells like pennies, as you recall. Yeah.
No, but
Miss
seriously,
Casa
do you
Bonita.
think he stays with the Rocky Mountain Rescue after this?
I don't know.
Do you think he got the feeling back?
Oh man. I would like to think that the three of them would just leave that mountain behind. I mean, come on, there's so much tragedy,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's dead. Everybody is dead at this point. So it really is just them left. Yeah, I'd like to think like their cliffhanging days are behind.
I think maybe one snow dude might have survived, but I don't know.
Yeah. That might have been like that's probably the little button, the little happy ending this movie probably could have used. But again, like this film, I think I don't have it in front of me. Let's see, what's the running time? I think this movie is probably it's just a few minutes under 2 hours. I think it probably could have been like 100 minutes tops. I think it could have been a lot tighter, especially getting started, getting everything in motion. There's just too much talky when we know what has to happen. We know that if a plane is going to take off with a lot of money and that things are going to happen, we don't need everybody over explaining. Yeah, it's I don't know. Like I don't like those situation room scenes. That's one of the things I don't like about Air Force One. There's so many scenes of like actors just sitting around in a room like, oh, tell us, what's the situation? We don't need that. The movie is clearly showing us what's happening. We're following it. We don't need the specifics and, all the jargon.
You don't want to know about the treasury and how like Quaylen's the only one who can launder this money.
I still want to know. I want to know whose sweater that is. I still want to know that. I think that's the one scene I want in this movie that the film is not giving me. And I did want a line where, because we talk again like myth making. Stallone loves to put in that myth making dialogue where it establishes how awesome his character is more so than any other character. I really wanted Michael Rooker to have a scene where the terrorists are kind of like, well, who is he? What are we up against? And Michael Rooker would have said, you guys, on land, he's Gabe, but out here, he's the Cliffhanger. I really wanted that. Because otherwise, I mean, it's a cool title because it's like, yeah, cliffhanger. Every scene ends with a cliffhanger, and he's the cliffhanger. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, really missed opportunity.
We didn't get that.
We didn't get the title of the movie in there.
Other than that, I do dig this film a lot.
How many stars?
3.5.
Me too.
Yeah, because it's thrilling. It's so exciting. It's bonkers. Though I got to say, as much as I love this film, and I do feel, even though like the movies he's made in the last 10 years have not been good, Rennie Harlin, not only do I think he's a very underrated action movie director, I still feel like his best movie is, and I think you're going to agree with me, The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Ooh.
He directed that.
Yeah.
And that movie is so
I haven't seen
awesome.
that one in forever.
It's great. It's so great.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3.5 stars for me. I dig it a lot. When this movie came out, I mean, it really did feel like, okay, like this is such a return to form for Stallone. I'm willing to forgive this movie of all of its sins because it's so suspenseful. The editing, the sound effects. I mean, it's a state-of-the-art action movie. And just like Jan de Bont's Twister, when it stops and makes you invested in the plot, let's just say it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because the story and the characters, everything feels like a work in progress. It really is a sloppy screenplay.
Well, and Stallone always makes it so like his character is just mysterious enough to be annoying because you're like, well, yeah, why haven't you called? Why haven't you been around? Like,
oh, so he's just like Lincoln Hawks in this case. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. He always does this.
He does.
Every character. And I sort of feel like it's a little bit of a lazy character development with his screenwriting. Like he doesn't want to dig into the whys of why none of his characters can have like a romantic relationship.
Or maybe he just feels like these, the action speaks for itself. It's like, I could have a scene where my character explains how he's feeling, or I just have him take off his shirt and climb the mountain.
I mean, I'm not complaining about that, but it is a little bit annoying because it leaves a lot of like question marks.
It does.
Yeah.
But, instead of linger on the question marks, I think like yourself, I am just so, I'm still blown away by this movie. I really am. There's a shot where the bad guys, they fire their weapons and they cause an avalanche.
Yeah.
Because they're so stupid. And there's a shot, for example, where Stallone is basically pressed against the mountainside as the snow just kind of rushes past him. It's like, what an iconic shot. It's like, it's so cool. Like it encompasses with this whole movie, a man against nature. And the whole film is about, his character finding catharsis, finding healing for the tragedy. And, he has to go to the top of the mountain and do it. The movie does not have psychological depth at all. So like it never explores how like everything that Gabe is doing is basically getting him back up there. And, it's like, getting back in the water after a shark attack. Mm-hmm. And the film doesn't really give us that. But in terms of a movie it's kind of about, the movie, for one thing, it's about an action movie star finding his groove after making 2 comedies that didn't work.
It could have been called How Stallone Got His Groove Back.
How Stallone Got His Groove Back. And by the way, right after this, because this was summer, and then in fall, he did Demolition Man. And I got to say, I've said it before, I'll say it again, Demolition Man, easily Stallone's best comedy. That movie is not really a comedy, but
he didn't write it?
No. And it's hilarious. Demolition Man is so funny. So I think like 93 for me, it's like, oh man, that was definitely the year that Stallone came back really hard, and Arnold had to kind of figure out what to do. But Arnold was fine because Last Action Hero didn't work, and then the next summer he did True Lies, so he wound up just fine.
Oh yeah. True Lies, another like favorite.
Yeah. Although it's hard to find now. It's controversial.
Oh.
Because of all sorts of stuff.
Oh, maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, maybe we should. I own it. So yeah, we can always watch True Lies. Yeah, True Lies is unlike this movie, even though this movie has all sorts of stuff in it. But who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. It's fun.
Who cares? It still works. They're still good. Yeah. So yeah, Cliffhanger. Check it out if you haven't seen Cliffhanger. I would say honestly, it's dopey, but I mean, this is one of the best action movies of its decade. It is. It's so good. It's so good at what it does, and Harlan, in his element, could make a killer action movie, and this is one of them.
All right. Well, that concludes our discussion of Cliffhanger.